Good evening. Welcome to Reflections on East Granby. My name is Mike Malloy, and I'll be your host this evening. Today's date is January 25th, 2013. Our guest tonight is Janet Jane. She goes by Jane Bennett, a longtime resident of East Granby.
Right.
She was born on July 19th, 1945. She was born in New Haven, Connecticut, and she'll be our guest this evening.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Thanks.
Thank
It's
you.
Jan. It's Jan.
Jan.
Yeah.
Okay. Did I say Jane?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a great
okay.
name.
Why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about growing up and what your earliest memories, how long you lived in New Haven and your earliest memories from there.
Well, I'm a native of Connecticut,
Okay.
which greatly, it was a big shock to the kids that I taught in Simsbury. When I was teaching, we went around the room and we said where we were born, and the kids couldn't believe that I was a native, but yes, indeed I was. I grew up in a lower middle class family.
Okay.
My dad was a carpenter. My mom worked at home, and a wonderful life I had. We had a small, I would say, a gentleman's farm. We raised chickens. We had a huge garden, and
In New Haven.
we actually was in North Haven that I lived.
Okay.
But it was just a basic, great growing up in the early 50s.
Okay. So you were born in 1945. You were like one of the original baby boomers.
I was.
You were
yes,
like just-
exactly.
July, was the war over? Not quite, right?
Not
No,
quite.
no.
Not quite.
So
I think it was in the European.
it was the
sector.
the Pacific War was still
Yeah,
going on.
yeah.
Okay. So how long did you live in New Haven?
I lived there all my life. I lived in
Really?
North Haven. I went to North Haven High School.
Okay.
You know how things change. That school's torn down now, but it was a great school. I had
Okay.
a great education. I really did. When I think about the things that I learned, it was great because we had a lot of teachers that were very involved with Yale, and so we had some very good instructors.
So you had some premier academic instruction.
I really
there,
think
huh?
I did, Mike.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
What anything else you remember growing up in the town? It sounds like a kind of a bucolic kind of place to grow up.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I used to miss the bus a lot, so I would take about 45 minutes of fast walking to the high school.
Okay.
We had one car.
Okay.
And my dad would work, and if you missed the bus, you had to get to school.
Right.
I loved school. I worked at W.T. Grant as a salesperson. You remember that store?
As a child, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of your younger folks wouldn't remember that, though. Yeah, that was a big. It was
a very big.
as common as
Absolutely,
Walmart. Or something.
absolutely. I think I remember earning 75 cents an hour, and then Mr. Walwork, I think his name was Walwork or something like that, gave me a quarter raise. That was a big deal. So,
Oh, wow.
But we rode our bikes every place. I have a brother who was 2 years younger than I. It was just we didn't have too many neighbors. It was just the two of us. And
Yeah, it's a question I always think of asking after the show a lot of times. But comparing the way the kids grow up today as to the way you grew up in that era, what would you say is the biggest difference?
oh, we had so much freedom
Yeah.
to enjoy life. It was very unstructured.
Okay.
We did things around the house. We helped in the garden. Not that I liked all that stuff at the time, but
some of it was chores.
yes, but it was just a lovely, easy growing up.
That's what a few guests have mentioned. The kids today always seem like they have adults with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the kids used to be able to ramble around. Even when I was a child, I remember that. Okay, so you grew up in New Haven. You went to school in New Haven. You graduated.
Mm-hmm. Graduated from North Haven High School.
And where'd you go from there?
I went to the University of Connecticut.
Okay.
And I got a Bachelor's of Science in Elementary Education. Here again, I could say I had an excellent education there.
Was that in stores then?
Yes.
Also? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I majored, as I said, in elementary ed, and I had 3 minors in English, history, and psych.
Wow.
And I would put my education at UConn against anyone's. It was a fantastic.
Right. That's great. And so UConn must have been a lot smaller then. I mean,
Yeah, it was probably, I don't remember the size.
Yeah.
It was not as fancy as it is now.
No, smaller buildings.
Yeah,
probably.
right. Smaller buildings. You know, when you spend $1 billion on,
You get
something for
you get
it.
something to look at, right? Okay, so you graduated from UConn in so you're born in 45. You went to school through the 50s. You graduated UConn in the early 60s.
Graduated
Mid-60s?
1967. I graduated.
Okay, right.
And immediately went to teaching school in Simsbury. But there was something that happened before that. I got married in 1965.
You met
Harley Bennett,
who's going to be our next guest on here tonight. But okay, so you met Harley in 60.
I met him in 1964
Where'd you meet Harley?
on a blind date.
Really? Somebody set it up?
Somebody set it up, and I should tell you this story.
Yeah.
My friend Leslie was going to school with me, and her pin mate was going to Bucknell University and had graduated. And Leslie came to see me on Wednesday of that week and said, "You have a date coming on Saturday." And I said, "Oh no, Leslie, I'm not going out." I was 18. I wanted to choose my own dates.
Right.
And she said, "Oh no, this guy is really very nice. He's a gentleman, very handsome." I said, "No thanks, I'm not going with you."
Right.
"Oh, we'll have a great time. He comes from a good family. He just graduated from Bucknell."
You were stubborn.
And so I said, "No, absolutely not. Jan, he just got a Corvette. Okay, I'll go."
She just had to find the right.
That was
ticket.
it. That was the hook.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. So a Corvette, 64. That must be quite a car.
That was quite a car.
Bet you wish you still had that. Huh?
Well, yes, that's for sure.
Okay, so all right, so you met Harley and you dated for 3 years?
No, we dated for less than a year.
Oh, so you got married in 65. Okay, so you were married before you graduated college.
Yes, I was.
Great.
I had my junior and senior year. We lived in Tallinn. We had bought a little house in Tallinn.
Right.
And that's where I went to school in UConn and also lived
Kids grew up so much quicker back then. They did. They moved. They
married at. I had just turned 20 by 5 days.
Wow, that's great. So you graduate. You're married. You own a house.
We owned a house because at that time, let's see, our Corvette payment I think was $114 a month.
Yeah, wow.
The house payment was $112 a month, and it was going to cost about the same amount to rent a place. So we decided, well, we'll just buy a house. So.
Well, with the housing market the way it is today, it's a little different. But back then, it was much less expensive to actually.
Our house cost $15,900.
I can't believe the Corvette was $100 a month. That was an expensive car.
It was.
Okay, so you had a Corvette, a house, a degree, a husband. So you're 22, 23 years old?
20 years old.
20 years old. Okay, so... And
22, I graduated.
When you graduated,
right.
So what did you do after you graduated?
I
went to
I went to... Harley was, by that time, working at combustion engineering.
Okay.
And so we moved from Tallinn over to this area, and we moved to Terriffill.
Okay, so the first stop was Terriffill. Okay, and you were teaching in Simsbury, so that made sense, and combustion was local.
Right, taught 4th grade.
Okay, so when did the children come along?
The children came in 1970.
Okay.
Our first son, Todd, was born in 1970, and our second child, John, we nicknamed him Lee.
Okay.
John Harley Bennett was born in 1973.
Okay, do they still live in the area? Or?
No, Todd lives in Granby.
Okay.
And John, or Lee, lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay, great.
We have 5 grandchildren.
Wow.
So I have to get that in.
so okay, so you have 2 children. Now you're 26, 27 years old, and you're already... Okay, so and why don't you give us a little bit of background of what it was. So this was early 70s. You were teaching. What was the difference in education then? I mean, you taught quite a span. So
I taught for 3 years only because.
Oh, you did. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I only taught for 3 years from 1967 to 1970 because back then the rules were very strict. If you were pregnant, you had to leave after about 5 months.
Really? You couldn't work?
No, it couldn't work. So that didn't deter us from working. We sort of told a little story about when we were expecting our children.
Right.
And so I worked until about 7 months. Nowadays, people work till the due date.
And then they come back a month or 2 later.
Right.
So it's a little different today. So you stayed at home to raise your children?
That's right.
That's the idea? Okay, so What did you do at that point? How did you fill your time other than with the children?
Well, as you know, it's a lot of work to have
two
kids.
children at home.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Especially back then, there weren't some of the modern conveniences we have today.
That's right. I tried to be a great mom, library and doing things at the playground. But I was very involved in Simsbury as far as the Junior Women's Club in Simsbury. Did a lot of volunteer work.
Oh, great.
Dragged the children along to various things.
So you stayed busy. You stayed active.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what? Okay. What? Your children went to school initially in Simsbury?
No, we lived in. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. We moved. We needed a bigger house, so in 1972 we moved to East Granby.
Okay, so you lived in Terriffill, so you were familiar with East Granby. What made you choose to move to East Granby?
It was a financial decision, Mike. We couldn't afford the size house we wanted in Simsbury.
Okay, similar to today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we found this great place in East Granby. It was a new development, Heather Hollow.
Okay.
So that's where we moved. It was 3 miles away from where we were living.
That's what they call that, where you're still in the same house? That's called Heather Hollow?
Right, Heather Hollow.
Okay.
1972.
No kidding. Okay, I thought those houses were newer than that. For some reason up there. Okay, so you're at you moved to East Granby. What were your first impressions? I mean, you said you moved for because you got more house for the money, I suppose. But what were your other first impressions of East Granby?
I was really happy to move here. It was a lower key town, you know, more like I was used to growing up. It was smaller and very comfortable. So,
great! Yeah.
I've just enjoyed. You know, sometimes when you're in a more higher level house, it's not as stressful. I didn't think.
Okay.
So great to be in that environment.
I mean, in comparison to Simsbury, yeah. Did you when you moved to East Granby? First of all, where did you live in Terriffill? Just
Hayes Road.
Hayes Road. Okay.
Right at there.
Okay, so you were literally a couple miles move.
3 miles.
3 miles. Right. Yeah. And if you were to compare the environment when you first moved into say East Granby today, what's the biggest change that you say?
Well, I don't think the population is that different. I think it's just a societal change. I know that children are watched more. You know, they're more structured. I think we're basically the same, but how people raise their children is different. Our children had free reign of the neighborhood.
Right.
Climbing trees and riding their bikes, and I don't see that as much today.
Well, as a parent, I can tell you, I think people think you're neglecting your kid if you let them run around. You know, I mean, sadly, I mean, I think that there's something lost there. I agree. Anyway, if you were, so you're in East Granby, your children went to school
in East Granby, right?
In the public schools. So they would have went to Algrove, right?
They went to Algrove, correct, then. Right?
And what was your experience in the school system?
I thought it was just wonderful. Our children were in a smaller environment, and it was not as high stress. And by that time, I think the culture had changed. And children were getting into trouble with drugs and whatever. And I think that in a smaller place, you have more control over your kids. And so I think Carly and I made the absolute right decision to have our kids here. As far as the school system, I mean, when you have a child who's taking French 5 with 5 other kids in their class, it's like having a public education, a private education in a public setting.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've heard many people refer to it as a public-private school. Yeah, so you were happy with the experience.
And I think our kids would be happy. They would say that because I think they were very well educated and ready for the real world after the bucolic East Granby.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, so your kids are in school. What did you do? What did you get involved with?
Oh well, 1976, 1977, Harley started his own business.
Okay.
And I decided I had some time and I would do his bookkeeping.
Okay.
So we did that, and still being very involved with church and doing other volunteer activities.
Okay. Now you were active in the community at that point. Did you? What were some of the What were some of the civic things that you got involved with?
I've been a member of the Economic Development Commission in town.
Okay, what years was that?
Oh, I would say that would be in the early 80s,
Okay.
probably. And I know that I was part of the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
In fact, Al Letterman and I were sitting down one day, and we were talking about how children were not getting as much accolades as in academics. And so we came up with the idea of the top 10 kids in a senior class would be treated to a dinner.
Okay,
So,
which still goes on?
Yeah, still goes on. We started that.
Just for our viewers, who was Al Letterman?
Al Letterman was the superintendent of schools
For quite a few years.
for quite a few years.
Yeah.
An excellent man.
Okay. So you came, yeah, that's right. We just they do it every year at the end of the year. Okay, so did you do that as part of the chamber, or was that part of?
That was part of the chamber.
Okay. What was it? Just to touch quickly on the Economic Development Commission. What would you say? What were the challenges of the day? Just it's kind of interesting to look back and say, what were you guys looking forward to?
Well, we were trying to get businesses into town,
Right.
and I think. Same old, right? It's hard. We have such an excellent location, being close to Bradley, close to 91, but it's just for a variety of reasons. It's just hard to move people, into this area. So
that was 32 years ago.
That's exactly
What would
right.
you, looking back, is there anything that you wish you had known then, or are the challenges similar?
I
In
think
terms, I'm
yeah.
specifically about economic development.
Yeah, I think Harley can speak to it. I think that it's the same. It's a lot of hard work, and you have to just work hard to keep ahead of the game. And this is why he'll tell you where we had to move for our business. We're now in our house.
Okay.
So things change, and but I want to tell you one thing that I was very involved with before we got off the subject. My favorite thing that I did was work for or help our high school get involved in a foreign exchange program.
Okay.
American Field Service was something I had always thought about doing. I remember in my high school we had a girl from Indonesia. Her name was Susie. And I thought, someday when I grow up and live in a town, I'd like to have that be part of my volunteer efforts when my kids are growing up. And so Betsy Hillman, who used to live in town, asked me to work with her, and so I was the host family finder.
Okay.
Of American Field Service.
So you had to go out and find suitable.
I hustled families too, because I knew that a person-to-person program, taking a kid in from a foreign land into your own house, how enriching that would be for a family. And we would often say that was probably one of the best things we ever did with our children.
Really?
Yeah.
So you took in. Now, how does that work? Why don't you frame that for our viewers a little bit?
Well, there's two ways. I would do a lot of interviews with my committee. We would go to a person's house and then talk about their interests and their type of living, what type of child they'd like to have live with them for a year. It was a huge commitment.
Well, yeah.
And we had some wonderful families and some wonderful kids.
Right. So your job was to find suitable matches,
yes,
for lack
exactly.
of a better word. Yeah.
We would write up our recommendations, and then in New York, they would give us the child that they thought would fit into that situation. But there was another way we did that. Sometimes, I know in 1984, I just couldn't find one family that would take a child. It's as I said, it's a huge commitment.
Yeah.
So I called New York up, the office up, and I said, send me the vitae of a kid, a boy, maybe a soccer player. And so one arrived at my desk, and I remember calling Harley up that day. We were working in the same office building. That's another thing we can go and talk about.
Yeah.
And I said, come quickly, you need to see something. And he said, honey, are you crying? I said, you have to come quick. So he came down the stairs, and there I had in front of me the picture and the interview of a boy from Norway. And I said, this is the kid. We're going to do this year. Harley said, but remember, our kids are not in high school yet. I said, it doesn't matter. This is the boy that we're going to have.
Right.
So we did.
What was it that...
Oh, he
the interview touched you in some way, obviously.
His write-up touched me, and I remember both his parents had small businesses. So I said, well, this kid knows what it's like to have an entrepreneurial family.
He'll fit.
Because you know how hard that is, Mike. Yeah. And he wanted to be in a family of younger children.
Right.
I thought that was pretty. That was pretty neat of a kid to say that. I was. You know, what would make him say that? He did want to live in either Florida or California.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, that's because that's what he knew.
Yeah, who would, if they were coming from Norway.
Exactly. So that was a bit of a shock for him.
Right.
But this has been, where I'm going with this has been a 27-year love affair.
Really? Mm-hmm. So you've been involved for that long?
Absolutely.
So how many children have you hosted?
Well, we've hosted two. We have this great kid, Geir Hagerud from Norway.
Yeah. And
in 1989, since we didn't have any girls in our family, I got this great idea. Okay, I needed a daughter.
Right.
So that year, again, we had trouble finding kids, or families I should
to
say.
Host, yeah.
So I called up New York and I said, send me 4 kids, because surely one of them will work out.
Right.
And I had gone through a lot of interviews with families, and a lot of families were on the fence. Oh, should we take one, or what should we do?
Like you said, it's a big commitment.
Big commitment. So I got these 4 envelopes, and I opened them up one at a time, and I read the first one. Oh, this one would be fantastic for this family.
Right.
You know, it's like seeing a puppy. You know, you just can't.
You were like a matchmaker.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was. And then the second one. Oh, I have to go back to this family with that child.
Right.
And the third one, yes. And finally, the fourth one was a girl from Greece.
Okay.
And she wanted to be an English teacher. She was very involved with civic and volunteer activities. She was into drama and music. And I said, this is my daughter. This is the one. So I remember saying, okay, how am I going to sell this? So I put her...
you got to get through
I have to get through the approvals. And so I put the paperwork next to her telephone.
Right.
And at that time, one of our boys was in college, so it was the younger boy that I was concerned about. And I just left her paperwork there for him to cogitate on this subject. And he would read it when he was talking to his friends on the phone. And one day I said, Lee, what do you think about this girl from Greece? Oh, Mom, she sounds wonderful. You need to get her a family in town.
Oh, he didn't say you.
No.
Okay.
So I let that go for a little bit, like about a day. And then I said, it's Mother's Day today. Yeah, happy Mother's Day. Mom, I didn't get you anything yet. Oh, well, all I have to do is have this girl as our daughter this coming year. So that was my setup.
You picked your day.
I picked my day,
choice.
exactly. But to show you how this is such a wonderful organization, both our boys said, we have to call our Norwegian brother first to see if that would be okay with him.
Really? Oh, wow. So they wanted to make sure you approved.
Everything,
Did you stay in touch with these folks?
Oh, yes.
I figure a year. That's quite
a year, and it was just made to order, made in heaven, actually.
Really? That's beautiful.
Both these kids are wonderful, and we're communicate with both of them today.
So you did that for how many years?
I did that from about 82, I think, was our first girl. Janine was from New Zealand. Okay. And I would find these and then act as maybe an aunt and uncle to them. Harley and I only had these 2 in our house.
Right.
But we interacted a lot with all these children.
So you were a part of the extended support network for any child that came over.
Exactly.
So that's great. What a wonderful experience.
And I did that until 92 when I went back to college.
Wow. Okay. And what did
Had to give that up.
Yeah, that was quite a segue. So what did you go back to get your degree in?
I went back to get my degree, and a lot of people helped me, including Al Letterman. I got my degree in communication disorders. This is speech pathology.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was
You don't have those problems.
That I understand. The communication disorder, we all have that.
As a businessman, you know that we always have these cycles, and we were going through some hard times in our country, and
Right.
we were another recession, and it was just getting hard financially. And I said to Harley, somebody in our family needs to get a real job here.
Right.
Instead of paying ourselves, let's see what else I could do.
Right.
And so I remember going to talk to Al Letterman and my friends who I used to teach school with in Simsbury, and they said, we need good speech pathologists in our school system.
Really? So they told you what the gap was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a good way to get educated.
Yeah, I did a lot of networking for that.
Right. So you got a degree. So then you went back to teach.
I graduated in '95.
Okay.
This is a huge commitment on my part and also on Harley's part.
Yeah.
We were, his mom was suffering from Alzheimer's at that time.
Okay.
So she came to live with us, so he had to deal with his mom during the daytime, because I went down to Southern Connecticut State College for State University for this career change, and I went down for three years, summers included, sometimes 6 days a week for class.
So you really condensed the degree.
Well, actually, I went in thinking that I didn't have to do all these prerequisite classes, but of course I had to take all my undergraduate courses in speech and language plus my graduate degree.
So the degrees that you had previously didn't apply, or
I tried to make that happen, but that didn't fly.
It just wasn't specific enough to what they wanted you to do. Yeah.
Exactly.
It seems like that's a fairly specific or
it was
specialized field.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was very difficult. I think for 3 years I never got more than 4 hours sleep.
Wow.
But it was definitely a wonderful career change.
So you were in your 40s at that point.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
I was 46.
Good for you. Yeah. That's great. So your children are in college at this point? Or?
They actually, it was, I remember the time I said, I have to do this. Our second son had just gone to college.
Okay.
And I remember being very sad one day and thinking, wait, I can go to college too. I can go back and get more training.
Right.
So I reinvented myself.
You got to give you a lot of credit for that. I mean, so many people think about it, but they don't actually follow through. So you got your degree in speech
Communication disorders.
Disorders, okay.
And I think, as I said to one of my professors, I learned this much about speech and language pathology, and I learned this much about life. It was absolutely a fantastic experience for me. I think it was a fantastic experience for the younger people that I was in class with. Of course, I was the oldest student.
But just a quick aside. I mean, I took a few classes after I graduated, and you get so much more out of it at that age. Don't you? I mean, I haven't taken anything, at that point.
Yeah, I think in 3 years I was probably bored for about 6 minutes.
Yeah.
My mind wandered for 6 minutes total. And Mike, I think one of the best things was, I remember I was always the one, and I've always been like this. If I didn't understand anything, something, I would raise my hand and say, would you re-explain that, because that just didn't sound right to me. And I remember one time I said that to one of our professors. I said, Dr. Larea, go over that again for me, because that I just didn't compute. And he said, I don't know what I said either. So that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful to be with professionals who were honest and just hardworking and ready to give the best for you.
Well, they appreciated your effort, which is good. They weren't just trying to float themselves.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so you got your degree, and where did you go? What did you do with that?
Well, I have to tell you that our church, which we go to the Methodist Church in Simsbury, the United Methodist Church, prayed a lot for me.
Okay.
And they said, "Are you finished yet?" I said, "No, it's 3 years. I have to do the whole thing for 3 years." And they would say, "Oh, you must be worried about getting a job." I said, "Oh no, I know that once I get this degree, I'm going to have lots of opportunities. It's a career that you can go from birth to death and help people from neonatal care all the way up to people in convalescent homes." So it was very easy to get a job.
Right.
I first worked in rehab centers and also skilled nursing facilities.
Okay, so you were working with people that had undergone trauma, or
Trauma, brain trauma, and also strokes and Parkinson's and muscular dystrophy and all those diseases.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it.
Yeah, I mean,
I loved it. I just think it was how sometimes a stress in your life leads you to make a big change.
Yeah.
And now looking back, thank goodness we had that stress, because it was a life-changing move.
Yeah. I always it's a saying that I like. It's our limitations that propel us.
Absolutely.
So we get trapped in, for whatever reason, in something, and we move ahead. So it sounds like you really found your niche there. How long did you do that, or are you still?
Well, I did that from '95. I graduated.
Okay.
And I did that until about 1999, working in the medical field, and I loved that. That was very, very, very interesting.
Okay.
And I thought, I'll probably stay in this field, working with doctors and staffing with OTs and occupational therapists and physical therapists. But those jobs started drying up because of Medicare changes.
Right.
So again, I said to myself, I was once a teacher, so let me go back into the school system.
Right. So just when you say Medicare changes, they weren't paying for speech pathology the way they used to? Okay, okay.
Right.
So you went back into what?
I went back into the school system, because that's what I had been told by my teacher friends. We need good speech pathologists.
Right.
And so one interesting thing is as I said, I knew that I would not have any trouble getting a job, because it's a field that's
in demand.
Very much in demand. And I was working per diem at McLean doing work with stroke patients. And I got my 2 job offers 10 minutes apart. So I remember calling Harley, what do I do? What do I do? And he said, well, where are they? And just sort of figure out which one you'd rather do and choose that one. So I did. I chose the place where I knew I could do the most help, and that was working in an urban setting.
Oh, wow.
And so I worked in the Hartford Public Schools.
Really?
For 11 years.
Yeah, good for you. So what years was this?
This was from 1999 to 2010. I worked there 11 years.
Which school did you?
I worked at the wonderful Martin Luther King School.
Okay.
On Richfield Street.
Is that what level is that? Is it?
I worked with children who were 3 years old all the way up to maybe 14.
Really? Wow. So what that's a pretty unique experience.
It's just a wonderful experience.
Why don't you share a little bit about that? I mean, what was that like?
Well, I just I had often thought about doing work in the Peace Corps, or you want to make a difference in people's lives, and maybe it was being involved with foreign exchange students and just working a little bit outside the box in that way. And I thought, do I want to go back into a suburban setting, or do something where there's really a need?
Potential for a real impact.
Potential for a real, I mean, you bloom where you're planted, certainly.
Right.
But I had a friend who was a principal in Hartford, and I had heard all her stories about children who, you read a book about a beach or a mountain. They had no idea what that was.
Wow.
So you'd have to come up with all these creative ways to, help kids learn.
To try
to learn vocabulary and how to sequence a story. So
the challenges were
monumental,
and it sounds like you were actually inspired by it.
I was inspired, and I think to be part of as a new teacher again, I think I was also inspirational for other people. Seeing this person come in as my 4th career, So it was a great, great fit.
I've got a few customers that teach in the Hartford schools, and I find without exception, they tend to be, because it's a challenging environment, they tend to be some pretty impressive people just to take it on. You know, was that your experience?
Absolutely.
Or was it,
And because I didn't have my own classroom, I know that
Right.
I was given more things to do.
Right.
I worked on our school accreditation, and I started career day in our school.
Oh, wow.
You know, Martin Luther King School, you'd say, okay, he had a dream. And I would always say to these kids, well, what's your dream?
Right.
And they didn't have any.
Right.
So I said, well, they've got to sort of start at an early age to figure out what they want to do with their life.
Absolutely.
How are they going to make a difference? And so it was a wonderful...
That's a great question for any kid.
That's exactly right. We should always be asking people, what's your next step? What's your next... I still do that with my own children.
Or even adults. Right,
Absolutely.
Right,
what do you want to do 5 years from now?
Right.
You have to sort of be thinking ahead all the time.
It's a different way of kind of approaching life, and you got to kind of trigger it.
Yeah, and you just can't get stuck where you are.
No.
Because that just leads to atrophy, brain atrophy.
Yeah.
You want to...
And unhappiness.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, that's great. So you really... we could do a show on each one of your little segments of life here, but so you did that, and how long did you do that?
I did that for 11 years in Hartford.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you left that, and where did you go from there?
I went home.
You retired.
I retired.
Good for you.
At the moment.
Yeah.
At the moment, and as I just told you before we started, I am so busy right now, and you hear that all the time.
What are you so busy with?
I am so busy doing volunteer work and doing work at our church.
Okay, so you're really involved with the church.
You know, I'm just so convinced that people need a connection to others, and so whatever I can do, like whether you bring communion to somebody in a convalescent home, or you start this group or that group, or one of my latest things is having people write their stories about how they've been touched by the hand of God. You know, what really makes you think life's worth living? What are some of your experiences to be a witness to other people?
That's beautiful. Yeah. It sounds like you've tapped into something that I think is always remarkable to me, which is when you know, it's almost oversaid, but when you do stuff for other people, you get more back for yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
But once you start to get involved civically, it's just so addicting in some way. You know what I mean?
Because it's a selfish feeling, actually, because you give 100% and you give back 150.
Right.
But meanwhile, you're the role model for other people who, you know, hopefully will do the same thing, and it's just such a great feeling to do that.
That's great. You had mentioned something also that you've been involved with that you're interested in, and where you have the time, I don't know, obviously. But you mentioned before we started talking that you were interested in genealogy.
Yeah, I am interested in that. My mom died young, and my dad lived to 95, so there's a big span there, and so it's gotten me to think about who we come from and why we are who we are. I think that's very interesting. And the particular interest I have is my grandmother was born in Australia.
Okay.
She was born May 10th, 1883.
Wow.
A long time ago. And when she was 6 years old, she was given up for adoption to a ship captain, an English ship captain, and his wife.
Really?
And I have my grandmother's birth certificate in Australia, and also this piece of paper where her mother signed her over and promised never to go search for her again. And I remember sitting on my grandmother's lap as a young child and asking, did you ever see your parents again? And the answer was no. She knew nothing about her father and her mother after 6 years old. She knew that she had had two sisters. And it's sort of been, Mike, it's been a dream of mine all my life. I've got to find out why my grandmother was given away, probably for economic reasons.
Yeah.
But I just want to honor her memory. And so that's what I'm working on now.
So you were digging into history.
I'm digging into history.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really, really is. It's a great story, sad story. But then again, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here. So it's.
Yeah, it's hard to look back and pass judgment.
Yeah,
right?
exactly right.
So you you kind of see that that's kind of the inspiration for this show, because in 100 years, your ancestors will be able to pull up, hopefully these tapes will be preserved, and they'll be able to pull it up and actually see you talk.
That's exactly right.
So if whatever happens down the road, your history will be here. So where has that brought you in genealogy? Have you just done your family's genealogy? Is that where you
yeah, and to encourage other people to do the same.
Okay.
I really think, just like you have blue eyes, I mean, where'd you get that from? Where'd you get your talents for mechanics? Where'd you get your talents for talking? You know, obviously, there's so many things that we do that it's just they're innate, but
which is what, you know, once again, what inspired me to do this show is because in 100, 200 years, one of your ancestors will be able to pull up a tape. We can see the written word now, but imagine being able to watch you. That's why I was so persistent trying to get in the committee. But one of your ancestors will be able to watch you and say, "Hey, you know, I have that same curl in my hair, or I have that same mannerism," and see their or patterns of speech or you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's magical. It really is. So you genealogy really piqued your interest.
Yeah, it's very interesting for me to know where we came from and how we all fit into this big human family. I think we would gain a lot more of it to know how people. How they coexist and how they relate to each other.
Yeah, we spend way too much time looking at the ways we're different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a very strong point. Okay, so we're going to touch base real quickly on some of the things about East Granby, because that's the name of the show. So when I asked you what the biggest change was, you kind of, was there any changes that you were involved in town government also. Was there any changes you think were the most beneficial for the town?
Yes, I'm glad that we have the little stores that we have now. I'm disappointed, however, that Route 20 corridor never developed.
Okay. What would you have liked to see there?
Oh, well, I remember when Fitzy's Market was there. Remember, it would be nice to have a grocery store.
A real grocery store in town.
Grocery store in town. But it hasn't changed that much, as you know.
Right.
And I can see where people would say, well, that gives it that flavor that we like.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But, you know, it's I know that my brother, who has moved from Las Vegas to Kansas City, is within 5 minutes of all the box stores. He has a beautiful home, but it's very convenient. We're not really convenient, you know.
Right.
But then again, you just live with that. You just live with being 15 minutes away from a mall instead of right down the street.
So if Jan had a magic wand, what would you put on Route 20?
Oh, let's see.
Give you 3 things. How's it? Three wishes.
One thing I'd like to have is a community college.
Right on Route 20 in East Granby. Okay, all right. Yep.
I think to have an educational facility would be a real plus for our town.
Right. It probably would be a good draw for the whole area. You're right. That's a good point. And what else? 2 more.
Oh, well, you know, I was...
A grocery store, I guess.
Grocery store. Well, of course, we're 3 miles away from the Stop and Shop in Granby.
Yeah.
You know, you pay a price when you have more convenience, then you have more traffic.
Right.
And I remember when we were part of the Economic Development Commission, that how from Route 20, there's that side road that takes you down to the school, and then to the town hall, and to the police department. I always liked that you could get away from the traffic and then get into a town center.
Right.
So I wouldn't change that. I think that was a great addition to our town.
Okay.
We had that little enclave there of the civic, the senior center.
Kind of like a little island set aside.
In the library.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
It's a nice setup there.
It's a very nice setup.
You don't have, just something I've noticed. There's a little pond back there. You can't really see it anymore.
Yes.
But I've walked back there and it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's too bad, but anyway.
Yeah.
They really laid it out nicely down there. So you have that's your wishes. Is there anything you think you would have liked to seen differently? I mean, this is not a critical question. It's just like.
I think
it's a very loaded question for a lot of people.
We were part of the decision-making process back, I think it was in the 80s sometime, whether we should have a regionalized school.
Okay.
I'm glad we didn't.
Okay.
I'm sure that would have, consolidated a lot of subjects, and Probably saved some money. I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah, I don't.
but the fact that you have a small school system, both our kids graduated from classes in their senior year, about less than 50.
Right.
In fact, the year that we had the girl from Greece, the boy from Chile, another boy from Germany, a girl from Honduras, that was my big year for foreign exchange students. There were 44 kids in the graduating class, 4 of them.
4 of them from other countries.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is very cool. It's almost 10%.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
You know, I was on that same subject. I remember when our Norwegian boy did something or heard something, and he said to me, "How do people know that I was involved in that?" I said, "Oh, you know, this is a small town. And, you know, have you ever heard of the grapevine?" He had no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
I said, you know, it's easy for us to keep our eyes on our children and what's going on.
Right.
If you're an involved citizen, you know that. Compared to Hartford, I can tell you that's a huge school system.
Right.
And it's things get lost in the translation.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So,
yeah. I like the size of the school system is great, but you're right. I mean, it's almost, there's a critical mass where you start to lose that.
Yeah.
And you pay a price for that.
Yeah.
We're about as small as you can get and still sustain it.
We're about as small as you can get. Honestly, I don't think I would change that. That would,
really?
it would probably be better for our housing prices and whatever, our growth. Look at Simsbury, look at Granby, but, you know, I'm glad this is...
I think this is saying they've actually looked at it even from a financial standpoint, and the per pupil cost when you send kids out of town is usually not that different, if not more, oftentimes, because the host town is no interest for them to undercharge you. You know?
And then there's the busing issue and the sports issue.
Just the fabric
you
of
know,
the community.
Absolutely. When you're in a small school or small town, and the kid says, "Oh, maybe I'd like to do baseball," and you say, "Okay, he has a pulse. He has a bat.
He's got a shot.
He's got a shot."
Right.
It's instead of all that competitive stuff, you do the best job. Everyone depends on you.
Yes, absolutely. It's my son's 9 years old, and 5. If you have events on 5 different nights, you might see the same kids at 5, literally 5 different nights.
But you know, that sells your family. That sells the concept that we're all in this together, that everyone has to pull their own weight, get involved in doing something that's interesting to them, and you know you make a difference when you see the same people over and over again. I never had a problem with that.
It also forces a kind of community parenting.
Absolutely.
Because nothing slips under the rug when there's 44 kids in the class.
Fine.
You know, they're everybody's on top of it. So.
Absolutely.
Well, that's great. Is there any other, you know, you've been involved in so many different things. There's a question that I always ask all my guests is if you were to give advice to a young person growing up today, what would your words of wisdom be if you were to try to, been a lot of them.
I would say always keep dreaming and thinking about the next step in your life.
Okay, you touched on that.
Yeah, and nothing is impossible.
Okay.
I really think we have to say to ourselves, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? Where can I help? Where can I go from here? And there's always somebody or something that will get you to the next step. You've got to go looking for it. You know, it's a biblical statement that you seek and you shall find. So you just have to keep looking and keep searching and ask those questions of yourself.
Keep pushing.
Keep pushing.
Yeah, that's great advice. We have a few minutes left here. Is there any other things that you wanted to share that you had thought of?
We touched on Australia and genealogy.
We touched on a lot of stuff. Yeah.
We touched on involvement of our town services.
Right.
Always keep learning, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that the fact that I went back to school at 46 was a fantastic thing. I remember my dad saying to me when I graduated, I was 50, "Oh, too bad you didn't know this, honey, ahead of time. You could have saved yourself a lot of stress and struggle." I said, "Oh, no, Dad. This was perfect timing."
Right.
Perfect timing for me, perfect timing for the people that I sat in the classes with,
right.
Perfect timing for my professors who would look around the room and then their eyes would come on me and they'd say, "Oh, this one's really listening."
Right. Eye contact.
Eye contact, and what, of course, a big thing for language development.
Yeah, I was in my mid-20s when I took a class, and I remember thinking half these kids don't even want to be here.
Exactly.
It was young kids, and it was I stopped asking questions because I felt like I was the only one interested. You know? But anyway, so you've had a pretty well-rounded.
Absolutely. From the time I was little, it was a small town growth, but always I did a lot of reading and lived vicariously through books.
Yeah.
And then just always looking elsewhere for more things to do and more things to learn about.
What's next?
I don't know. Well, actually, I will tell you a couple.
I'm turning it around on you now.
Okay,
You gotta have a plan, right? Okay.
I'm taking a class in our church called SHAPE, which is spiritual, SHAPE.
Okay.
Spiritual gifts is S, H is heart, A is abilities,
Okay.
P is personality, and E is experiences.
Okay.
And if you think about all those aspects, you can see how you can take all those things and turn your life into a more positive approach for other people and for the world, in this case for our church. So I know I've been to convalescent homes and people are lonely there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, what could we do to, I love to sing, I'm part of our church choir.
Right.
And I know the Owen Murphy Apartments in Simsbury, they're always looking for programs. There's something you could do. You get a group of people together and sing the old songs for them. Another thing that's always interested in me, people who are, especially in the African American community, who have not learned to read. I've often thought, I have the talents that I could go and teach older people who feel insecure about their reading abilities,
Right.
if they have any,
Right.
because illiteracy is a big problem in our culture still. I think I could turn some people back to reading again. So that's another thing.
Open a whole world for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sounds like you're still planning.
Yeah, I'm planning.
you got some good stuff left in you.
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you one thing. It struck me. I've had family members in nursing homes. My mom was in a nursing home, and it would be wonderful to see little kids go in there and sing.
Absolutely.
I think we segregate our disadvantaged folks a little. You know what I mean? It's just too much.
Absolutely. They have dog therapy.
I've seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think you have to get over a lot of fears about little kids being insecure about that. But here again, if you know that you're part of a bigger environment, a bigger family, it is reality.
Yeah.
And I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the elderly. So
I just remember walking through the nursing home when my mom was there, and the way that their faces would light up when I walked through with my little son. And they would all just be like, they wanted to talk to him. And it's just a magical experience. Anyway, well, I appreciate you coming on tonight and spending almost an hour with us here talking about your life. And we're going to talk to your husband next.
Great.
We're going to go from there.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us here tonight on Reflections on East Granby. Our guest tonight, Jan Bennett, a longtime resident of East Granby, and she has shared her story with us tonight. And I appreciate you joining us here. Thank you.